Northridge is a safe place to shop. Before he was arrested for his wife's murder, some feared a random killer was loose in that area. The verdict eased their concern.
Yonkers and J.C. Penney's closed last year. Outside Northridge Mall, the parking lot is nearly empty. No cars, no people. The department store will shut its doors for good on January 26th.
A lot more people used to shop here. They had about every store you can go to.
For Northridge Mall, today's announcement was the final nail in the coffin. Boston store was the only store left at Northridge. Now, in March 2003, it too will be gone.
Hello and welcome inside Northridge Mall in spring 2021. I'm your cruise director, Kristen, and in this episode, we're going to see some wild stuff. When I was offered the opportunity to be able to visit this legendarily abandoned structure, I was warned it was much worse now than it had been in even the most recent videos. Nothing, however, prepared me for the sheer volume of broken glass in here. Every surface is covered with the fine dust of crumbling drywall and pulverized glass. It also did not prepare me for the smell. Literally anything in this building that can be broken or vandalized has been, and that includes smashing plumbing fixtures, which has resulted in the whole building smelling faintly of sewage on top of eau de mildew. This mall, once a crown jewel for Milwaukee's northwest side, a shopping and social destination for the neighborhood, is now a monument to broken glass, empty promises, and failed plans. Viewers, don't let your dead malls grow up to be Northridge. There are piles of glass chunks inside nearly every storefront. Security is trying their best to keep what is already a hazardous situation from getting worse. I can't imagine what it would be like if someone wasn't periodically trying to keep the chaos contained. Even so, you can hear me crunching away on it as I walk, and when I got home I had to pull many shards of broken glass out of the soles of my boots with a pair of pliers. What we're seeing here seems to have been part of the mall's Easter display, and we're inside a former Walgreens. You can also see the old mall directories, never to direct anyone again. This used to be Gadzooks. In the 70s, two malls were built in Milwaukee on opposite sides of the metro area, developed by Taubman Centers Incorporated and funded in part by Senator Herb Kohl. The first to open was in 1970, Southridge, and it still remains vital and is owned by Simon Properties. Northridge, the second, opened in 1972 near where a planned freeway would pass directly by the mall. It was a prime location given what information the developers had available to them. Freeway revolts during the 70s resulted in the highway never being built, starting Northridge off on what could have been the fatal wrong foot. However, the mall thrived through the 70s and 80s, hosting fashion shows, radio station contests, and choir concerts. Northridge's anchor lineup at the opening consisted of JCPenney and Boston Store flanking center court with Gimbels on one end and Sears on the other. By 1986, Gimbels had collapsed as a company and was replaced by Marshall Fields in 1987. Taubman Centers and Senator Kohl sold the mall to JMB Realty Corporation of Chicago, who were already managing the property's operations for over a year in 1987. At the time, JMB Realty had a portfolio of over 136 malls and shopping centers. It was sold for a price of $223 million, the largest real estate transaction in the history of Wisconsin at the time. In 1987, when the mall was sold, it was at a healthy 90% occupancy, although it was beginning to appear dated, and many of the original fixtures, such as the large metal sculptures in center court, were beginning to deteriorate simply due to the passage of time. On May 19, 1988, the mall staged a press conference to unveil plans for the new Northridge that will convert many of the earth tones and mid-century design motifs to a fresh new look for the 80s, complete with a blue and gray color scheme and the addition of neon accents. Possibly most exciting to the mall-going public was the addition of the Skyridge Cafe food court. Prior to the remodel, each entrance court contained a restaurant, and now they would be concentrated in one neon-soaked area. Skyridge Cafe opened in November 1988 and the mall was off and running. It probably seemed like they were destined for long-term success at the time. It's odd walking around here when you know the mall hasn't undergone any serious renovations since then to see some of these storefronts that date back to the mid-90s. In their current state, it was like looking at my own childhood memories as they slowly slip away and the characteristics fade with each passing year. The color schemes and designs become lost to time until they're completely forgotten. The anchor lineup remained stable until nearly the end. Marshall Field's closed in 1989 and was almost immediately replaced by local chain Prangi for 3 years before becoming Yonkers in 1992, which it remained until it closed in 2000. All three of the other anchors remained original until each closed permanently in the early 2000s. What we're walking into here is a former Learner, which sold women's clothing. You may know it better as New York & Company, the name they operated under until their bankruptcy last year. The store design was in use during most of the 90s. The death of every mall does not begin with a tragedy. Sometimes they're just fundamentally replaced by newer shopping destinations or the neighborhood changes. That did happen here to some degree. The fact the highway was never built made it less convenient than some of the newer shopping that popped up around Milwaukee in the 90s, and that certainly contributed to Northridge's downfall. The fact that newer suburbs were built that caused many of Milwaukee's more affluent residents to move further from the city also didn't help. One factor in Northridge's downfall was indeed the result of a tragic murder and the proliferation of a vicious lie that damaged the mall's reputation irreparably. On the evening of April 21, 1992, Jesse Anderson stabbed his wife 21 times in the parking lot of a TGI Fridays restaurant adjacent to the mall. Mr. Anderson, a white man, told authorities that his wife had been murdered by two black men who attacked the couple at random. After 5 days of searching for the fictitious murderers, Anderson was arrested and charged with the murder. After the arrest, lab results from blood samples and the fact that Mr. Anderson had called to verify the status of his wife's life insurance policy in the month leading up to the murder meant the case was quick and decisive. A gruesome postscript to that story is that Anderson was murdered in prison alongside another inmate you may have heard of, Jeffrey Dahmer. The false story told by Anderson resulted in parts of the public fearing it was no longer safe to visit the mall, and while it came out quickly that the story was fabricated, it left a lasting impression. As I've said before in these videos, sometimes it doesn't matter if the story is true or not. If any part of the public believes it, the damage is done.
Is that the movie theater?
This imposing wall was once the entrance to Sears, and on the other side of it is a very much open Menards. The mall had been closed for 3 years when this wall was erected in 2005, and this court used to contain an escalator.
What the hell is that?
Okay, folks, in case you think urban exploration is glamorous, these are there are pieces of toilet mixed in with this, and it stinks. So let's talk about what happened after Northridge closed and how it set into motion what remains of it today.
It has become an eyesore. The vacant Northridge Mall desperately needs a makeover to attract businesses and jobs.
Stores shut down, no foot traffic, and boarded up windows. That's the scene today inside of the vacant Northridge Mall. Some say the once vibrant retail space is now an eyesore.
I think it's going to take commitment from the investors, whoever wants to commit to doing something with this. They definitely have to be committed to this project, whatever it may be.
Bill Penzi of Penzi Spices has now put $800,000 into a new deal to pay off We Energies, a utility bill, and some back taxes. And soon, the vacant mall will be transformed into a center for food retail, warehousing, and distribution. It's a deal that's been several months in the making. Development plans for the mall's current owners never materialized, so the city is celebrating.
He thought the sale might be final by January 2013. That didn't happen, mainly because of a legal battle with the property's current owner. Penzi now figures it won't be until April before he finally takes possession of Northridge.
The interior of Northridge Mall closed on September 1st, 2002. JCPenney's and Yonkers both closed in 2000, and Sears nearly survived until the mall closed, shutting its doors in early 2002. Boston Store remained open until mid-2003, the one piece of life clinging on to the now empty mall. In 2008, Northridge was sold to its current owner, U.S. Black Spruce Enterprises, a Chinese investment firm who proclaimed they would be doing something with the property. What that something is has changed from an open-air shopping center to light industrial to an Asian marketplace and business center. The firm has long been a thorn in the side of Milwaukee officials ever since the purchase. The property has fallen into foreclosure multiple times. The first time was in 2013. After the foreclosure was filed, Penzeys Spices attempted to purchase the property out of foreclosure to turn it into a distribution center and offices for the company, with tentative plans to offer customer dining and cooking experiences on the property as well. They were successful in purchasing the former Boston store, which Black Spruce didn't own. However, at the 0 hour, Black Spruce was able to make the required payment to prevent the mall from being turned over to the city and in turn to Penzeys Spices. As a result of the transaction falling through, Penzeys turned over the Boston store and its adjoining parking lot to the city in anticipation of their ability to redevelop it. Oh my god. Oh, this is gnarly. Oh, I can't breathe. Things were quiet for a few years at Northridge. It was used by a few airsoft groups as a competition arena, but the mall remained largely pristine and unblemished. You could have reopened it with very little reconditioning.
A popular U2 star is bringing new life to an abandoned mall on Milwaukee's northwest side.
An empty food court, broken glass, and boarded up doors, just some of the sights inside the Northridge Mall that hasn't seen a shopper in 15 years. But for one special day, the mall's atrium transformed into a winter wonderland.
Trespassing, vandalism, and theft have all been on the rise since December of 2017.
That was the straw. We're ready.
When a YouTube star filmed a video inside the vacant building. Well, Mayor Barrett says Northridge isn't safe. The walls are failing and the entire roof needs to be replaced. The owners haven't secured this property and the city doesn't have the resources to keep people away.
Nothing has happened here essentially for 10 years.
Mayor Barrett says the current owners, a Chinese investment group, have not only failed to repair and secure the property, they haven't been in contact with the city for months.
We've seen a lot more tagging, a lot more vandalism.
Lewis says the owner group has had more than enough time to do something, so the city is taking matters into its own hands, ordering the owners to demolish the property over the next 20 days.
We are demanding action. We are demanding action for health and safety reasons on behalf of the residents of our city.
That is, until 2017, when a massively popular YouTube video went viral that brought international publicity to the empty mall in the form of Casey Neistat's Winter Wonderland Christmas event. I'm sure it was done with the best of intentions. The mall was sealed up, it hadn't been vandalized very much yet, no one seemed to be getting in there, so what was the harm, right? I'm not here to pass judgment on what was intended to be a charitable event for underprivileged children, but local officials like Alderwoman Shantia Lewis have not spared any words to place the blame for Northridge's rapid descent into vandalism, theft, and break-ins on its newfound publicity. No one knew it was there to speak of outside the metro area, and then, overnight, everyone knew about it. The walls tell the story of just how many people have gotten in here since it closed. There are videos from as recently as 2018 where most of the drywall covering the food court stalls is intact. Now, nearly every space has been ripped into as people treated the mall as their personal rage room. Layers and layers of spray paint cover the walls. Much more glass is broken. Ceilings and walls ripped open by those in search of copper and other valuable materials. This destruction sent the local government into action, issuing a raise order in April of 2019, ordering Black Spruce to demolish the mall within 20 days. Black Spruce appealed the ruling, miring the mall in even more legal red tape and further delaying the redevelopment process.
New at 10, a contractor killed at the abandoned Northridge Mall. His family says he was electrocuted last night while working at the closed property.
That Northridge Mall site, as you know, has been a haven for vandalism since it closed in 2003. 37-year-old Victoriano Diaz has been hired there 6 months ago to weld doors shut to keep people out and to maintain that facility.
Just a simple action of going to shut the fuse box door. It turns out it had a live wire.
Victor was about to leave his job at Northridge Mall when it happened, a split-second decision to make things tidy that took his life. Tonight we received a medical examiner's report that says the fuse box had been vandalized and that's why it was open. The Milwaukee police would only confirm the incident happened but wouldn't say any more.
It was unsafe before, but now it's even worse.
City officials are urging everybody keep out of this dangerous abandoned building. There are fences in place to try and keep people out, but it will do little from keeping out curious residents and vandals looking for social media clout on their phone. Just a few steps away from that fence is an easy pathway to get right inside and give you a straight shot into what is now known as a very dangerous building.
It has been affecting the community with the fact that it's still there. It's uglying up the community. It needs to be knocked down. We need to build something better in that area.
The order to tear down Northridge Mall is currently in a state of appeal, but Alderwoman Lewis says she is confident it will get done by the end of the year. I reached out to the attorney who represents Black Spruce, who owns Northridge Mall, but never received a call back. Outside of Northridge Mall, Sean Gallagher.
On July 22nd of 2019, a maintenance worker, Victoriano Diaz, was killed when he touched a vandalized fuse box to close it and was electrocuted. Had the mall been torn down with the original order, it would not have still been standing, and Mr. Diaz would still be alive. Eerily, in a video produced by the proper people that seems to have been filmed around the time the demolition order was issued, they can be seen briefly speaking to a man who strongly resembles Mr. Diaz while he was working in the mall and they were trying to find a way out. A second demolition order was issued on May 13, 2020, after the Milwaukee County Circuit Court ruled the mall was too dangerous to remain standing. According to state law, the government can seize ownership of the property for demolition if the cost to repair it to minimum safety standards exceeds 50% of the mall's assessed value. The repair bill is estimated to be around $2 million. Northridge was appraised in 2019 at a mere $81,000. Black Spruce once again appealed and reaffirmed their plans to remodel the mall into a business center and market. That brings us to 2021, when I visited the still standing Northridge. The Boston store space is in the middle of asbestos remediation, so it can be demolished in the coming months, but the mall itself remains mired in legal hell. It is better patrolled these days, so the pace at which it's being vandalized has slowed somewhat. However, we were told as we walked around to scream if we ran into someone not with our group. I realize as I'm writing this that there are people watching this video who grew up going to this mall in its heyday, and how heartbreaking it must be to see it being demolished at a glacial pace, one window or brick at a time. All of us who have documented its progress into oblivion are in some way complicit in how it reached its current condition, and I acknowledge I'm not immune to such criticism. I took only video, I left only footprints, but with any abandoned property you have to know that the person who sees your work may not do the same. The palace has fallen, leaving only broken glass and leaking ceilings in its wake, soon to be only dust until something rises from its ashes that will benefit the area more than a dangerous, crumbling mall. This building is all but crying out to be put out of its misery and be laid to rest. Thank you for the memories, Northridge. May you be remembered at your best and not at your worst.